What will the future of retail look like in a post-pandemic world? Could be a lot of changes. We'll discuss.
The U.S. retail industry contributes more than $1 trillion to the U.S. economy. That's nearly 6% of the entire gross domestic product. But retail, as we know, has been hit hard by the coronavirus as job losses and uncertainty have put consumers on hold. And the U.S. economy is, of course, driven by consumption. Here to break it all down is Ronen Luzon. He's the CEO of MySizeID, working with online retailers and retailers as well, along with Tom Basili and Inez Stepman. Welcome, everyone, to the program. Ronen, we'll start with you here. We know retailers have really taken a hit during coronavirus, but can you bring us up to speed as to really how terrible this could be for some retailers?
So the public globally around the world now afraid to come back to the offline stores, but the online as well has suffered. Some has even increased their sales. Some lost their sales. We can see the last report from Nike that they increased in 30% their online sales. But the majority of those retailers is coming from the offline stores. So they need to face now, when they're going to reopen the stores in the States, they're going to face how to attract customers back in the stores with having to wear their masks on, with having to do a contactless and social distancing.
Yeah.
So that's one of the issues that retailers will suffer now.
Yeah, and we've seen some states beginning to open up, or at least new plans to, and sometimes those are just the curbside pickup only. And I mean, I know for a lot of cases you can't, really decide on clothing specifically that you want to purchase without actually going into the store to try it on and make that decision. So that could be very difficult for some retailers. Inez, we'll bring you into the conversation here. We know so many people have lost their jobs, millions of Americans, more than 30 million Americans right now, some of them in the service industry, some of them working in these shops, some of them small business owners. I mean, this is devastating.
Absolutely. There are no great pathways forward here in terms of public health and the economy. And a lot of Americans are experiencing, just as you said, job loss and devastation and all the attendant problems that come with being out of work, as well as, for example, skyrocketing suicide rates. So the retail sector is hit really hard. The restaurant sector is hit really hard. Everything that sells, let's say, an atmosphere or an experience, right, is going to experience problems bringing people back in. If it's just the product, then as you mentioned, people can order online or pick up curbside. But if part of what you are selling is an atmosphere, an experience, the ability to try on clothes for size, for example, those things are going to be very, very difficult to get back, even as states do loosen lockdowns and allow retailers to open. They're still going to have difficulty attracting customers who don't want to catch this virus.
Right. There is that new fear surrounding coronavirus, especially as we wait for a vaccine that could deter some people from going out. Tom, we saw the new retail numbers this morning. Retail sales plunging 16.4% in the month of April here. Let's talk about timing of when certain states are deciding to reopen. Based on when governors could sign off on when some retail shops could reopen, I mean, if it's months from now, we might not see these stores reopen even when they are given the green light to do so.
Well, that's true. And look, it's important to point out that brick and mortar retail was suffering pretty significantly, particularly in closed malls and mega centers long before the pandemic. We saw Sears basically go out of business a couple of years ago because they didn't improve their brick and mortar experience, and they also did not sort of catch up with the times and the technology. The other impact that you're going to see from a hastening of that potentially is local state sales tax and local property tax revenue. If you see smaller footprints of these retail outlets, smaller brick and mortar, or a shift to far more online, you're going to see a decrease in tax revenue for state and local governments that's going to be very significant. And that is something, whether you're an Amazon shopper or not, is going to impact everybody. So there's a lot of unknowns going into the aftermath of this pandemic, but clearly there's going to be a need for some innovation in the industry, and there's going to be some shift in consumer behavior.
Yeah. Ronan, finally from you, final word here. What advice would you give to those retailers who are planning to reopen pretty soon?
So I totally agree with Tom. The retail business has suffered long before the pandemic, and retailers need to move to the digital age and have a new experience for their consumers, both online and offline and brick and mortar. And one of those, the solution is like MySize is bringing out, is how to measure yourself, bring the digital experience back into the brick and mortar stores, especially now with the pandemic in the stores, social distancing and contactless. You can measure yourself using technologies like MySize. You can measure yourself just by moving your mobile device. It will be your personal tailor. So you move device, you create your profile with your exact measurement, and you get your right size recommendation when you step into the store. And you can do everything from your mobile device. You can buy the item, you can do the entire checkout and get your recommended size on each and every item that you want to buy without measuring out. And the fitting room will be closed as well in the first stage, at least in the stores. So that this is one of the technologies, and totally agree with you, Tom, this is one of the technologies that when retailers need to bring and some sort of bridge between the two worlds, the offline and the online, how actually to attract customers back in, and that they will feel the entire experience back online and offline.
Yeah. All right. We're going to leave it at that. Thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate your time. Thanks for the conversation. It needs to be had.